Howdy chaps, welcome back to part 3 of 6,000. I don't actually know how I'm going to do the hand signals for when I get to 6,000. I'll be like, yeah. But I will show you what we've been up to. Howdy chaps, I thought I'd start off with a bit of a story as to how I fell in love with these giant, heavy things. There's a town on the Victorian South Australian border, I've mentioned this a couple of times in videos, called Murrayville. Back in the 90s, Dad took us through there on a trip between Adelaide and Sydney, and I think it was like 1998, and that was back when the whole place was virtually untouched from when they stopped using it. And that was a tank collector's dream. There was stuff everywhere. But over the last 20 years, it's all sort of disappeared and there's virtually nothing left. But they are still there. Just be mindful that they're never going to sell them. The people who own them aren't going to sell them. So don't waste your time. Just go look, admire, realise that's probably one of the few places in the whole world where you can literally just go see a tank just rusting away in a paddock. Probably is other places, but that's one of the few places in Australia that you can just drive past, really. Alrighty, as you can see, Dad has been particularly busy of an evening and during the day cleaning up and getting paint off and repainting the tank. So he's been busy. He did the diff cover the other day, it turned out lovely. Still haven't unseized all the gears in the gearbox, and I'm still a bit wondering how the fruit biscuit I'm actually going to clean out all that junk one day. I have got a couple of crown wheels lined up for the tooth that's missing on one of those gears, so I don't think that's going to be a big problem. I just think that might be a big headache down the track when I have to likely take the final drives off and get that transmission out and pull it apart effectively. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I've been getting some of the angle iron ready, so I've got a piece for here that's going to go up to here, replace the piece that was cut off, and do that side. Unfortunately I can't get exactly the same stuff, so I can get close, and close is good. Plus it's my tank, and my opinion is the only one that matters, really. And I have replaced these galvanized bolts with some big boys that are way stronger. Where were they? They were Imperial. How about that? I don't really know what any of that gibberish means, but I'm assuming they're a lot stronger than the other ones. Plus galvanized bolts probably aren't that strong anyway. But they're in now. Got this piece in, that's now in. Bolts in there, nuts welded on the inside, so that piece is officially replaced. I have been working on getting some of these giant screws out of here because I actually want to put that piece on, which is there, hopefully every time. If you had a drinking game of every time that compressor went off in the video, you'd be wasted by the end of it. Hopefully I want to get this on in this video, but it requires undoing these giant screws, which have been in there for some time. Unfortunately these sides I couldn't get out for love nor money, so these ones are broken off, but those ones are, yeah. But I have tried a new technique, and I made, now the tool you need to undo these is called a drag link socket, and they are a big blade. I ordered some online from Amazon, but they haven't actually turned up even though I paid for priority shipping, so where that is I don't know. So I got bored waiting, and I made my own out of a head of a hammer, panel beating hammer. So yeah, the hammer had a snapped handle, and I was like, oh, that fits the screws, doesn't it? So I found a not Taiwanese socket, I think it's an old Sid Chrome or something, and I've put it in there and welded the living snot out of it, and it is actually managed to, with some heat, get this guy out. So they're giant screws, they're big tapered screws with a flat blade. Now I have no idea where to get them from, so I've had to make them. Well, I've made one anyway. So I got these, if that's going to focus, they're a Allen key bolt, and I welded on the top, put it upside down into the drill press, and then had the flapper disc running on an angle to shape the dome in it. And if I take it over to somewhere where it's got to be used, looks the part to me. It is a smidge smaller, but at least it looks right. Would you prefer to see that, or would you prefer to see that? I know what I would prefer. I prefer the screw. At least something that at a quick glance looks the part. Yep, that's what I'm going to use. So I've got to make these, but the fact that I have an idea on how to do them, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to try and save as many of the originals as possible, despite them being a little rusty. And I did buy myself a really nice tap and die set the other day. That was $1 gazillion. Interesting, it's got 2 of everything in it, which I was pretty happy with. So I'm going to set up a time lapse. I'm going to attempt to use some flamage. Hopefully I've got enough gas to be able to do this. I'm going to try and undo all those. So I've been using Obi-Wan Kenobi back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until it basically breaks the screws free and then it undoes. Well, at least that's what I did there. I tested it off screen so that if it didn't work, I didn't embarrass myself. If you're wondering why I'm extremely well lit, it's because there's a light directly behind you. I am not going to bore you with endless time lapse of me getting the next 8 out, because this could take some time. But that was the gist of it. I had to get a slightly more powerful rattle gun because I was like, if I keep doing that to that Ryobi, I'll kill it. And if I'd kill that sort of worth one, well, I'll go, I guess it wasn't worth it then. But yes, extreme heat. Back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, back, 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 like a lot. But it does eventually come out, as you saw. And I was like, there you go. And I didn't actually have to blast off the other side of it, so I'm actually a little bit happy about that because it's more likely to save the bolt. It's got some thread left on it. So I'll probably reuse them if I can. That way I don't have to make thousands of them. But I'll catch you up if I can't get that off. Well chaps, that absolutely worked utterly beautifully. Still amazing how warm that is, even though I haven't been on this side for a while. Obviously you've got to heat the living snot out of the bolt and the nut side to the point where they're literally glowing red hot. And I'll tell you what, There's quite a bit of warmth in that panel still. But my dodgy solution, which quite literally, for those playing at home, I don't know if that's going to focus, that is the end of a panel beating hammer. Welded into a socket. Because ages ago I worked out that the end of that hammer actually fitted into him. I was like, hello, what's all this then? And then I realised I couldn't get enough torque on it, so I was like, well, maybe if I heat the living snot out of it, weld that end into a socket, put the socket on the drill, it'll actually undo it. And the answer is yes. Might have mentioned it before, the correct tool is called a drag link socket. It's actually a socket with that end on it, but I didn't have one with me today, and I really wanted to get that guy on the back of this guy, mainly because I want to access the panel below it very shortly. So I'm going to quickly, clean up those edges. So a bit better than that, but yeah, clean them up so that I can pick this guy up with the crane. Obviously got to move a bit of junk out of the way, and I'll plop that on, and then we'll start getting a bit of an idea of what the back of this vehicle is going to look like. But I could not believe this Ryobi rattle gun, and these are pretty cheap. This guy, I'm not joking, has been through the wars. I can't actually, I rate tools a bit. That air compressor over there, that Total Tools brand, that Iron Air compressor, utter garbage. Do not ever buy one. But this, if you want a good at-home rattle gun that is quite strong, I'm going to actually say that you should go get one. They are incredible. I have done some bad things to that, and it is like, would you like some more? I'm like, Be nice to be sponsored by Ryobi, wouldn't it? I'll give their tools a proper test on this thing. But yeah, go get one of those. They're cheap and good. I have actually broken bolts with that too by doing them up a bit too much. So, wow, just pretty impressed actually. Considering these are giant screws. More impressed by my welding actually holding up on that socket. Didn't expect that. But anyway, I'm going to get some things cleaned up and then I'll do a time lapse of piecing that piece on. It is terrible weather today. It is garbage. So I'll catch you up in a second. Alrighty, so that bit's back on. I actually had to put the porta power in sort of there and here just to spread it, just to Mickey Whisker. I was actually thinking if you were doing this kind of a restoration, it would be stupid not to have a porta power, because that can move 10 tons. That should be able to actually lift the tank up in any position, like, you know, if you're putting it anywhere, it shouldn't have any issues. And it's raining again. Yeah, it's raining again. Nicked that with the rattle gun. You can see it's a little bit smaller. It's not the end of the world. I prefer to see that than that. Ideally that would be better. So I have actually managed to recover some of those and run a tap through them, and the bit of thread that actually matters, which is right there where the nut goes, is okay. And considering this tank's not likely to go back into active combat, because anything modern would absolutely obliterate this without even a snuff of an iota of care, I don't think it matters too much. Also, you can see that the crank handle hole is there. It's actually not in the center, it's off to one center, because that's the center there. Because I think the starter motor goes in, it's actually clocked slightly to the left. Definitely raining. And I will remove these. There's only a couple in it just to sort of hold it. The next thing I'm going to do, well, actually, funny this thing, I've got about 1,000 things I could be doing. There's so many little tasks in this tank, it's not even funny. But I want to pull this driver's hatch off this T-piece, because the T-piece is correct, the driver hatch is not correct for this tank. This is a later style hatch. I've only got one of them, but I've been told that these are so insanely rare it's not even funny. It's one of the first things to get cut off a tank if it becomes a tractor. So I will be keeping that. Firstly, to actually make a template from, if I have to. And I'm going to steal the hinges off it. And I'm going to may or may not take that guy. I might make another one to copy him. But the original hatch for this tank is hugely more basic. It's actually only got like a hole like this in it, pretty much exactly the same as that through the center, whereas this one's got a couple of thingamabobs and still got a piece of glass or perspex in there. I've already been contacted by about 4 different people who spotted that, like, what do you do with it? I'm like, whoa dudes, calm down, cool the beans, it's not going anywhere yet. Cool your jets, hut shut. I'm just going to pull the hatch off that T-piece. That T-piece is probably going to be after I do the other rear section over here. I'm going to put that piece on at the back there because I'm having it made. Then the next piece I'm going to do is actually the opposite of this little guy and put it here with another bit of 10mm plate there, and then I can actually put that piece on the vehicle and it will start looking a lot better, because that piece joins up to that piece and that piece over there. So that piece and that piece all sort of go together, and then I've got to cut a new section for here that goes to about meow, and then a little bit up there, and then that's most of the front, and then obviously an access hole for that. But it won't take too much to get this turned into a vehicle again. As you can see through the back, I've realised after putting those 2 bits in, I've just made getting into the inside of this tank 5 or 6 times harder than it was. But you know, that's part of the game. You weren't actually supposed to go through that bit anyway, so that's coming up the pecking order. So I want to get that driver's hatch off that, because that driver's hatch is like almost 2 inches thick and it weighs a bazillion kilos. But yeah, I want to get that off, and then I can prep this for when I have that other piece, so that can go in, because that's the front of the tank. It's good that the top half of the hinges are still on there. Gee, they're monsters, aren't they? So all I gotta do is heat that hinge up to a gazillion degrees and potentially try and punch that pin out. How successful I'm gonna be, I don't know yet. But I'm gonna give it a red hot go. I may actually have to take both hinges off that hatch eventually, maybe. See it, play it by ear. Anyway, I'm going to do that and catch you up in a second. Alright, after quite a bit of faffing, I did get this hatch off, and the rivets drew the shorts tour. I'm sorry, but I could not, for the life of me, get that pin out of that hinge. I couldn't do it. It just wouldn't go. It's like, no, I've been in here 80 years and I'm not going nowhere. So I was like, well, I do want the hinge and that one. I guess the tops of the rivets have got to come off. I didn't hurt the hinges too badly, hardly at all really, and I didn't hurt the hatch, which is now surplus to me. I'm going to save it as a trade item, but I am going to use it as a profile. Well, basically I'm going to use it as a template to, you know, not trace out, but steal the dimensions so that I can get 2 early style hatches made. Realistically, it's just a big rectangle of steel with a sort of tapered edge on this end and a round end on that end. Really, it's not, and you know, 4 hinge holes. So that piece is effectively ready to go back on the vehicle. That took a lot of weight out of it. I don't know what that weighs, but it'd have to be. You'd have to think it'd be 60 kilos at least. Some of it's still loose. I don't really know what either of those two. I know you look through that one, but I don't know what this one does. Anyway, the rain has set in. Well, look at the size of the rivets though. Incredible. And I do have a hinge that I can copy this bit and make the other halves. So I don't really know what else I'm going to get done in this video because I'm actually running out of time, but we might just do a little walk around and show you what's a few things that are happening. I did actually manage to undo these two as well. I was like, I've got a sense of humour. I was like, well, that happened. So down here I did actually get the threads cleared, 3 of them, for the other control stick. Unfortunately that side there, someone has done some welding to something and there's weld in the hole, so not entirely sure how I'm going to fix that unless I sit there with a die grinder and try and clean it out. But my theory goes, I suppose when push comes to shove, I could just put the bracket in there and just add a bit of weld and then pretend I know nothing. But I think on the next, depending on when this piece turns up for here, and then I'll get measurements made for that side and get this piece done, and then we can put that T-piece on, and then we'll be starting to really get a wriggle on. I've also got to get these down, the pedals down under there, and I sort of want to do them before putting that stick in, because once that goes in, that's going to make getting in there a bit more difficult. But yeah, we did actually successfully get some space from the workshop now. This piece on, this piece on. So yeah, we're all just plodding along. Oh, and I don't know if I didn't show you that, but I did actually end up reproducing one of the, I got one and I reproduced another one, so I got 2 back seat braces. I need to copy a front one to do 2 for the front. So we're all running along quite well actually. But this is where I might love you and leave you, and I hope I have enough content for a video. But you can sort of get the gist that it's actually, let's step back a little bit, starting to actually resemble a tank again. Quite impressed. And for everybody who's asked, yes, I do have tracks. I haven't gone and got them yet. And I will be picking up the engine for this hopefully this week coming, probably next weekend. So we'll just play it by ear. But I do have tracks and I do have an engine coming, so there are a few things that I do have. But I know that people ask, where's your tracks, like at least 5 or 6 times. Like, I have tracks for it, alright guys? You can stop asking now. But I don't know, I hope you like this video, and we'll see you in the next one.